My in-laws were informed, with smiles on their faces, by my husband Justin and his mom Linda shortly after I purchased a home with a garden. People warned that Justin might file for a divorce if I objected. She would undoubtedly bring her nasty daughter with her if Linda came. They proceeded with it regardless of my distaste for it. Even at the new residence, the daily harassment would go on. "No, I refuse to live with you." The idea made me gag. With an arched eyebrow, Linda met my gaze. She produced Justin's already signed divorce papers. She was solely concerned with acquiring the house. Worryingly, their strategy had been successful. I found it difficult to suppress my laughs. Linda appeared triumphant as she watched me shiver with my head bowed. Subtly, I signed the divorce papers, gathered all of my belongings, and fled the house that filled me with fear. The day of the move, my ex-mother-in-law called me nonstop. She then proceeded to demand, "Have you realized yet?" To meet and chat, she requested. It was precisely my desire. Meeting her would put a stop to this. It was time for the last showdown, so I got ready and went to confront them. "Hi, I'm Julie. At this advertising agency, I do my job. A manager at a newspaper company named Eric introduced me to my husband, Larry. Because of my precarious situation, I felt I couldn't turn down Eric's offer. Due to Larry's insistence, I married him after 5 months of dating, even though I was 31 years old at the time. This choice ultimately left me feeling remorseful. My ex-mother-in-law, Olivia, may have intended to trick me from the beginning, especially at this crucial juncture. She was initially sweet and kind, but once I married Larry, her attitude shifted. She revealed herself to be a harsh mother-in-law after removing the disguise of an understanding elderly woman. "Excuse me, Julie, what are you up to now?" "I instructed you to tend to the garden after you washed the dishes." Every single day, her piercing screams reverberated throughout the entire home. Every day, I felt completely drained. Even a yes was a stretch for me. Larry urged that I move in with my in-laws after the wedding, so I reluctantly consented. Olivia, his mother, had been nursing a leg injury that had plagued her for years, and his father had already died. After explaining that he was unable to leave his elderly mother alone in the house, Larry pleaded with me. When I arrived, though Olivia seemed to be okay, she walked around. Every day she endured my severe treatment, insisting that it was the responsibility of a mother-in-law to educate her daughter-in-law. Larry was equally useless. He always found a way to sidestep the topic whenever I proposed that we live apart. He never defended me when Mom reprimanded me and would do everything she wanted. "Yeah, my mom has quite a temper, huh?" He would state it. Quit smiling and provide me a hand. My mind is struggling with this. My anxiety and despair levels plummeted after my marriage. For no apparent reason. I started to cry or feel nauseous. My adjustment condition was officially identified after my visit to the doctor. It was awful to think that being at my in-laws' place all the time was having a negative impact on me. Olivia insisted on making irrational requests regardless of how I felt about it. Just because it's a holiday doesn't mean you can slack off. Are you through with the room cleaning? You still haven't shopped. You should definitely stop by the bargain shops before you go. No need to yell at me, Olivia. A headache has struck me. Please let me take care of the cleaning and shopping later, I begged. Take that away from me. Upon receiving a command, you promptly carry it out. Aren't you the daughter-in-law? A maid is not the same as a daughter-in-law. I was going to fire back. Cleaning the gutters, removing the wallpaper, and repairing the splinters in the pillars were common requests she made of her housekeepers. The in-laws' abode was dilapidated and ancient, and every time the wind blew, it creaked. She insisted Larry buy a new house time and time again. "Just so you know, this house is a rental. We're getting it from a friend for a low rent. Let us just enjoy our own home for a change." "Larry, don't you think so?" she would ask. "I would love to, but my pay just won't cover it. Having a home of our own is merely a pipe dream," Larry declared. When Olivia's patience with her useless kid finally gave out, she exploded, and she took it out on me. Cook, clean, weave the garden, take me to the hospital. My exhaustion from working full-time went unnoticed by her. I had an adjustment condition, which was to be expected. It seemed like every day, 5 months after I moved in with my in-laws, a woman who brought nothing but misery into my life showed up. Following her divorce, Larry's sister, Callie, returned, this time carrying her child. According to her, her ex-boyfriend told her she was out of her life and that he no longer wanted to see her. Honestly, I'm to blame. She told the truth. I left my kid alone and slept with my husband's boss. Do you know what this woman thinks about morality? Callie grinned slightly as she beheld my expression of shock. Not only did Kelly look exactly like Olivia, but she also acted exactly like her. Instead of doing her share of the housekeeping, she insisted that I clean her room. Don't you think it's only fair? I'm taking care of a kid. Given that you have never been a mother, you have no idea how much more difficult it is than it appears. So, Julie, I am grateful in advance for your assistance. Callie failed miserably. She did nothing all day. To put it mildly, her concern for her child was lacking. Sitting motionless on the couch, she would do nothing. Her conduct was particularly problematic on weekends. She would send her little kid and me to the arcade while she was gone. On occasion, Callie would start drinking in the afternoon with some of her naughty pals from her Wilder days. I was hoping Callie would pitch in with the housework, even if it was only a little bit. A woman like her would do anything for a quick buck. Callie once gave me a sketching bag. Inside, I discovered a ring, vintage lighters, and cufflinks that belonged to my dad. What do you expect me to do with these? I inquired. Determine it. Get a good price and sell them, Callie nonchalantly suggested. Originally intended as mementos, these items belonged to my late father. On the other hand, Callie instructed me to sell them without hesitation. I was overcome with melancholy, particularly because I knew she would probably put that money toward the arcade. Unable to bring myself to do it, I explained the situation and handed the bag over to Larry. I don't know what he did with his father's keepsakes, and frankly, I don't want to know. When Callie first returned, many things happened. My belongings frequently went missing after she arrived. Around that time, I also discovered that Larry was probably having an affair. A friend who worked at a different advertising agency saw him in town on a weekend. Larry was walking arm in arm with a flashy young woman. I was furious when I heard the story. I'm working hard from morning till night, even on weekends, and you're out having fun with a young woman. Unbelievable. This is cheating, right? Who is she? Tell me the truth. It's not cheating, Larry replied. She's just a worker from a massage parlor. And how is that any better? You shouldn't be going to such places when you're married, I shouted. Kelly laughed hysterically at our argument. Olivia seemed annoyed, but didn't strongly scold Larry. According to Olivia's logic, if a husband goes to such places, it's because the wife isn't devoted enough. Getting upset over something like that is embarrassing. The problem is you. If you're more devoted to Larry, this wouldn't happen, Olivia said. I'd agree, Olivia. Isn't that a bit unreasonable? I said, this is the norm in this house. Besides, going to places like that or having an affair shows a man's strength. A wife should forgive such things with a big heart, Olivia added. What was normal for them was crazy to me. Forgive visits to those places and affairs? There was no way I could do that. My frustration only grew, and I couldn't just stand by any longer. Determined to change this unpleasant situation, I decided to take action. Olivia and Kelly stayed the same, day after day, treating me like a servant. They lounged around on a sofa or floor, raising their voices when they were hungry. Hey, why isn't lunch ready yet? It's already noon. Stop dragging your feet, Julie. You're so slow. It's annoying. Then why don't you make it yourself? I've been cleaning the garden. airing out the carpets, and shopping with no time to rest, I replied, "Don't talk back. Know your place as the daughter-in-law." They snapped. I wasn't even allowed to voice my opinion. I was utterly fed up. I wanted a divorce immediately, but if it were that easy, I wouldn't have been struggling. Larry was introduced to me by Eric, a manager at a newspaper company. I owed a lot to my boss, Richard, who also asked me not to do anything that would embarrass him. Olivia knew this and often used it against me. I was completely stuck between a rock and a hard place. For a while, all I could do was endure. Then one day, Larry's affair became undeniable. That friend from the other agency got solid proof. The first stage of my plan was complete. I needed to figure out my next move. About a month later, I think it was, Callie spread out a housing catalog on the dinner table after dinner. From every angle, it was clear that these were items I had put in my bag. "Look at this. Julie was planning to buy a house." "Wait, did you rummage through my bag? Why? Why would you do that?" I demanded. "Just be quiet. Oh, it's a nice house. A bit in the countryside, but still," Callie said. "Hey, Julie, you should have discussed something like this with me," she added. "I had my eye on a house with a garden," as Olivia said. "It was in the countryside, but it looked quite good." I had already visited the place several times and met with the real estate agent. When I admitted this, the three of them became very interested. "What? How far along are you in the process? Are you going to buy it? It's cheap and spacious. Not bad at all," Olivia said. Larry added, "Men got to be bold. Oh well, a house with a garden, huh? That's a big decision. If you decide to become the head of your own household, I'll support you and I'll even help a little financially. Wouldn't you like to leave here and live with Julie in your own place?" Olivia said, pretending to be supportive. She was already encouraging Larry before I could say anything. How fake. She had no intention of letting me go easily. When I asked whose name the house would be under, Larry frowned. "I'm the head of the household. It will be in my name, of course. Then can I go ahead with the purchase? We'll buy this house and the two of us will move out, right?" I asked. "All right, I've decided. I'll buy the house. Go ahead and move forward with the arrangements," Larry finally said firmly. Olivia and Kelly both praised Larry for his decision, but I noticed them exchanging a knowing smile. A few days later, just after buying the house with a garden in the countryside, as planned, Larry and Olivia, both grinning, made an announcement. "They're moving in, too," Larry said. "What? But you said we'd live there alone," I exclaimed. "After thinking it over, we decided to live together. You're not going to say no, are you? If you refuse, I'll make Larry divorce you." "I wonder what your boss, Richard, would think of that," Olivia said. There it was, a cowardly move. If Olivia came, Kelly would surely follow. I shuddered at the thought of daily harassment continuing even in the new house. "No way. I absolutely refuse. I have no intention of living there with you," I said firmly. "You don't seem to understand your position," Olivia said, her eyebrows shooting up in anger. Her face was red, veins bulging at her temples. She pulled out divorce papers from somewhere, and Larry's part was already signed. Her face showed she didn't care about anything as long as she got the house. "If you're really going to refuse, then sign here," she said. "All right, I will. I'll sign. Let's get divorced. I've had enough," I replied. "What? Hey, Julie, are you sure about this?" Larry asked. "Leave her. A useless woman like this is just going to make you angry. You're young. You'll find a new wife soon enough," Olivia said harshly. I quietly signed the divorce papers. Olivia looked triumphant, but she had no idea how I felt. My plan had worked perfectly, which was terrifying. I struggled to hold back my laughter. A few days after I moved into my new apartment, I started getting a lot of calls from Olivia. Checking my calendar, I realized today was their moving day. She must have figured it out. The phone kept ringing nonstop. Typical Olivia. Ignoring the calls didn't help. They kept coming. Finally, I answered. Due to her persistence, Olivia didn't even say hello. She just started yelling. Julie, how could you do this? What kind of house did you make us buy? Hello, Olivia. Calm down. What are you talking about? I replied. Don't play dumb. This house. You knew it was defective when you bought it, didn't you? Didn't you? She screamed. That's right. The house I chose had problems. The ground was unstable, causing the land to sink. Even a new house could have doors and windows that wouldn't close properly after a few years. There were old mining tunnels nearby that caused these issues. The locals knew about this and built their houses on stable land. Only clueless newcomers fell into this trap. I used this problem-ridden house to trick those three. It was tough to find a reasonably priced defective house, even with the help of a real estate agent. I also made sure Kelly would steal the real estate catalog from my bag. I had deliberately left my bag in an easy-to-steal place. They fell right into the trap and moved in. It was hard to keep from laughing when I signed the divorce papers. I wanted to tell them everything, but I couldn't. I played dumb. A defective house? That can't be right. There must be some mistake, I said, feigning innocence. What is with that attitude? So fake. Just come over here, Olivia demanded. No, honestly, I don't ever want to see you again, I replied firmly. What? What did you say? She yelled. There was no way I wanted to see that unreasonable family again. I told her I wouldn't meet them, even if they paid me. Then Larry took over after she clicked her tongue. Julie, please think about our situation a little, Larry said. I could say the same to you, Larry. Did you ever think about my feelings? No, you didn't. I was always isolated, I retorted. I'm sorry. I'll apologize. Just tell me where you moved to, he pleaded. Why would I tell you that? If you showed up, I'd have to move again. I want to cut all ties with you, I said. The conversation went nowhere. Eventually, Olivia and the others started making even more outrageous claims. They said the divorce was invalid and that we were still family. I had 2 colleagues sign as witnesses and submitted the divorce papers to the city hall. They are valid, and there's no way it's invalid. How unreasonable can they be? Anyway, they kept insisting. Just meet with us once, Julie. We need to settle this properly. Olivia and Larry were determined to meet and talk. I knew they would keep calling if I kept refusing. I had no choice but to meet them to put an end to it myself. Fine, I'll meet with you once, I said. Thank you. I owe you one, Larry replied. But I'll choose the time and place, okay? I couldn't risk being ambushed or followed. I needed to stay in control to ensure my safety. After making careful plans, I arranged to meet the 3 of them at a cave. I arrived at the cave 15 minutes late. Olivia and Kelly were already furious from waiting. Larry had a strained smile on his face. As expected, they were predictable. How dare you keep your elders waiting? It's so disrespectful, Olivia shouted. I don't want to hear about respect from you. So what do you want? I replied. What's with that attitude? It's infuriating. We're stuck with a defective house because of you. Take responsibility. Kelly chimed in. I told you I don't know anything about that. You decided to move in on your own, didn't you? I responded. Olivia faltered, unable to deny that she and Kelly had willingly moved into the defective house. Their previous home was being renovated, so the only place they had to live was the defective house. If you're done, I have something to say, Olivia. I will be suing you for damages. Prepare yourself, I said. What damages? Suing. Why? What did I ever do to you? Tell me clearly, Olivia demanded. You mentally tormented me to the point of developing an adjustment disorder, I said, showing them a copy of my medical diagnosis. The 3 of them stared at it intently. Olivia's eyes widened. She probably never imagined I had been seeing a psychiatrist. You never thought about how much your words hurt others, did you? It was very painful for me. I felt nauseous and cried a lot. It was really tough, I continued. That's because you're weak. You were a lousy daughter-in-law and deserved it. Isn't that right? Olivia retorted. Calling me a lousy daughter-in-law repeatedly is slander. Slander is punishable by up to a year in prison or a fine of up to $5,000, I said firmly. What? That's ridiculous. Olivia exclaimed. What's ridiculous? I countered. Olivia didn't understand the seriousness of her actions. She had no idea how harmful her behavior was or how much her verbal abuse had hurt me. You also did other things that are punishable by law. You threatened me multiple times, saying you'd tell Richard about the divorce. That's extortion, I added. Wait, isn't that a bit exaggerated? Larry interjected. It's not exaggerated at all. By the way, extortion carries a penalty of up to 3 years in prison or a fine of up to $5,000, I replied. I won't back down on this, I said firmly. All right. Wait a minute. Callie stepped in, her eyes sharper than usual. She had the look of someone who wouldn't be intimidated by threats. What is this? Scaring my mom by taking advantage of her ignorance. Do you have any proof of these so-called slanders and threats? Yes, I do. I've been recording everything, I replied. What? Recording? Callie's eyes widened. Yes, I'd been recording with my phone's voice memo the entire time I lived at my ex-in-law's house. I have plenty of audio recordings, including data of Olivia's abusive language. Submitting this as evidence would confirm the charges of slander and threats. Did you really think I'd just take it? It's not just Olivia. Callie, you're also guilty. You'll be held accountable, too. What? Why me? What did I do? Callie's voice rose in panic. Think about it. Haven't you committed any crimes? Or are you saying you hadn't caused me any trouble? Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. Callie insisted she was innocent. I showed her the screen on my phone. Callie's face turned pale. It showed her rummaging through my bag, nervously glancing around while searching the contents. What's that? How did you record this? She stammered. Because my belongings frequently went missing after you arrived. Makeup, accessories, clothes, bags. I set up a hidden camera. This is awful. How could you do that? You're just a daughter-in-law, Callie yelled. Who's the one overstepping boundaries here? Let me inform you about the penalty for theft. Up to 12 years in prison or a fine of up to $5,000. I'll be contacting the police, I said firmly. Callie's mouth opened and closed. She wanted to argue, but she couldn't. She looked completely helpless. I had kept track of all my missing items. Knowing the exact extent of the damages would make it easier for the police and lawyers to act. If I was going to do this, I would do it thoroughly. I was determined not to let these 3 off the hook. Finally, it was Larry's turn. He shrank back under my glare. If there was anyone I couldn't forgive the most, it was him. I believed a marriage was about mutual support, but Larry, you saw things differently, didn't you? From start to finish, you were always my enemy, weren't you? Enemy? No, I never meant that. Not at all. Please believe me. Even today, I was trying to mediate as much as possible. Larry pleaded. Sure enough, with the lies. I don't need your mediation, I said coldly. Larry was a cowardly man. He'd always sided with the stronger party. He had always been with Olivia and Callie. Even now, he was trying to placate me to save himself. If he had been a slightly better man, maybe, but it was too late now. I would have stayed married if he had just said, let's move away and live just the 2 of us. The name of your affair partner, I believe, is Nick. What? How did you? Larry stammered. I had a friend investigate. She's good at that. Even have pictures of you and Nick entering a hotel together. Look here, they are, I said, showing the photos. No. Don't show them. Don't show them. Larry tried to stop me from showing the screen. He didn't want his mother and sister to see his affair, but why should it matter? Their morals were already broken. They were all like-minded. I returned the phone to my backpack along with the copy of the diagnostic. Everything that was required of me has been proven. When faced with failure and exhaustion, Olivia, Larry, and Kelly lied. The authorities would be notified in the event that they committed any wrongdoing. They appeared frightened, but I was determined to call the cops no matter what they did. I think the cops will show up at some point. Attempt not to flee. Doing so will exacerbate the problem. Also, stay away from me. Do you get it? I made a warning. Julie, just be a little warmer. Recall that we were married up until quite recently. Then Larry begged. It was a major error on my part to be married to you, in my honest opinion. I am so relieved that we are no longer a couple. I will file charges if you pursue me. So, unless absolutely necessary, do not wait outside my office or contact me, I stated sternly. After we settled on a few basic terms, I excused myself from the cafe. They maintained their downcast expressions even after I departed. People will talk regardless of your efforts. Word of Larry's divorce got around the office fast. The causes, including his adultery and abuse of me, became public knowledge at the same time. This led to Larry being treated coldly by his coworkers. It was Eric from the Associated Newspaper Company that first introduced us. As expected, Larry became distrusted and was looked down upon. Larry finally left because he couldn't stand working in such a harsh environment. His connections with his family, including his mother and sister, deteriorated as he had trouble finding work. Larry showed up again in my life around a year after we divorced. As I was getting out of my office, he shouted my name, and as I turned around, I saw a scruffy-looking man standing there. "My name is Larry. You were so unfamiliar to me," I remarked. "I am aware." Larry lamented that people had noticed a difference in his appearance. His appearance betrayed the hardships he had endured. "How are Olivia and Kelly?" I inquired. "They're not dead, but they're clinging on by a thread. If they didn't start working now, we wouldn't have a chance of survival. Constantly, they express a desire to return to the previous way of life, dependent on our combined income. Nothing has changed with them." Larry compared them to parasites. Severing relations with them was unquestionably the correct choice. He refrained from arguing, which caught me off guard. After apologizing to me, Larry let out a heavy sigh. "I apologize deeply for all that has happened. It is something I really regret. I acted foolishly. I see your point. You should have counted on me from the beginning. That was really insane of me. Your entire family has been completely insane since the beginning." I responded with a sense of coldness. "Allow us to coexist once more, please. This time I'm going to sever all connections with them." He begged her to be his sole companion. "Is that so?" "I'm in a relationship with someone else now." I stated with conviction that I would never accept you back, regardless of my honesty. Larry fell to his knees at my words, but his strategy had failed. In that very moment, I would have spit on him if I had been less polite. I drove home after abandoning him. I never heard from him again. According to the real estate agent who assisted me, Olivia, Larry, and Kelly's lives had completely unraveled. Their relationships deteriorated as a result of their shared blame for their impoverishment. Their neighbors reported hearing yelling and shattered glass from their home nightly. They scolded and tortured one another without success. It was just terrible. Nobody wanted to talk to them, so they lived in relative isolation. They would eventually wind up homeless, with nothing except their debts after selling their unsellable house for close to nothing. The image of the three of them curled up under the freezing sky, yelling at each other, is crystal clear in my mind. When they reach rock bottom, I would want to witness their horrible condition. At the same time, I'm experiencing an unbelievable level of happiness in my life. I owe it all to my new business partner. The one I told Larry about. A mature man with a kind personality and a knack for making other people feel appreciated, he has found success in sales for a large trade organization. Similarly to me, he is a divorcee. Soon we will be planning a modest wedding. The experience of my first marriage was really painful. When I think back on the bad days, I still get emotional, yet leaning on him brings me solace and warmth. This is my rightful place. After a lengthy detour, I arrived at my destination. I feel that way. My experiences have taught me to be more compassionate toward others. Making the most of what life has given me, I want to shine brightly. At the moment, that is my sentiment.